want to go out and like really do something.
I say and I say it again, you've been had, you've been took, you've been hoodwinked, bamboozled.
It's a celebration, fellas. Salute.
Always do the right thing.
That's it?
That's it.
I got it. I'm gone. The way of the future. The way of the future. The way of the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. It is no longer the way of the future. It's the way of the present. We have the final week of season 2 of Duel of the Greats, folks. 2 directors will come in. Only one will come out as the winner from this week and join Steven Spielberg on our pantheon of winners from the seasons of this podcast. So, similar to last season, it's going to be us presenting our case. This year, Steve is going to be our judge, whereas Nate was sort of the impartial judge last year. So, Steve, this is Steve's court. He's making the rules. He's deciding. Steve, tell us how this week is going to go.
Give me that robe. I am ready. Give me a gavel.
We need a gavel. Damn it. We needed a gavel sound effect.
Oh, shit. We can put it in post. All right. I'm ready. I'm ready for this. The weight of authority has descended upon me. I am cloaked in immense power, as one of our favorite characters said. That's Abraham Lincoln.
That was last season.
That's a callback. That's a callback. Have we had any judges in this season yet? Anyway, well, maybe a few. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Was there something in Cape Fear? Was there?
There might have
lawyers, but I can't remember if there was a judge.
There were some crooked folks, but well, hear ye, oh yay, oh yay, oh yay, which is a thing they actually say in court. It's very strange. Court is in session, and here's how this is going to work. We've drawn lots via some random numbers. Nate won. He chose to defer, went with the Andy Reid Chiefs method. He's going to go second. So Jeff, representing The Irishman as his choice for Martin Scorsese's not necessarily best film. We'll let him make the case for why he picked it. But his representation for why Martin Scorsese should win and break this tie, he's going to go first, followed by Nate with Crooklyn. And they're each going to get a few minutes here to lay out the case. We'll hear from one, hear from the other. I may ask some questions, depending on if I have any thoughts. And then I will render a verdict based on their persuasive skills this week and the body of work that these directors have put together in the films that we've watched so far. So, there you go. With that, I yield the floor, Mr. Herr.
Thank you. Your Honorable Mr. Shepard. Here we are, folks. It's The Irishman, okay? This is one of the most recent movies we've discussed now, and it's... I'm trying to think. I was actually trying to think about it today. If this was the most recent movie we have discussed of all seasons so far. Because it's not Scorsese has made a movie since then with Killers of the Flower Moon, came out last year. But I can't think of a movie that we've discussed in any season that's been more recent. So it has had the least amount of time to sort of percolate through the film consciousness and sort of come out on, when we look at the classics that we've discussed, even going back to The Aviator, which is sort of a modern to classic. It's 20 years old now, literally this year. And Godfather, Goodfellas, 34 years old. Taxi Driver is 40 years or 50 years old this year. 1974, that movie was made. So this is, it's a recent movie. Hasn't had the time to exist in the consciousness yet, but I think that it made its mark. And I think if for nothing else, it's absurd length. I didn't think that we'd be able to find a movie that could match Malcolm X for length. And this is a solid 15 minutes longer than that 3 hour and 20 minute epic, right? 3 hours and 34 minutes this movie is. And I've watched all of it twice now. First time I watched it was on Jeff and Steve's Day of Fun. When this came out 2019, right before the pandemic, and it was it was around Thanksgiving.
It was Black Friday.
Black Friday. This was the first year that Steve and I worked together, for those who don't know, and at our jobs, they had always given us Columbus Day and Veterans Day off. And then they switched and said, okay, you can choose and be on different schedules. And you can, instead of getting Columbus Day and Veterans Day, you can get Black Friday and Christmas Eve. So we took those for sure. So the first year that we had that opportunity, we took it. We're off Black Friday. So, like, okay, let's just go. Let's hit up a bunch of the stores. Steve and I are obviously big nerds. We get a lot of all the stores. Let's go to all the stores, go to the mall, go check out all these places. And then we'll get something to eat. And then we'll come back and we'll finish the day by watching The Irishman. And that's exactly what we did. And that was the first time I saw it. And I'll be honest
Now,
with you.
I
Go
don't.
ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't want to throw you off your game too bad, but you did forget the silliest part. We started the day by flying an X-wing drone that you had
Oh crap!
won at a
I done
showing.
forgot about that. And that was I had one. We Steve and I also went to a advanced screening of The Last Jedi. My dad had gotten us tickets to that, and they had a raffle, and one of the things you can win was an X-wing drone. And I had that, and it'd been almost 2 full years I'd had it, and I'd never flown it because I, for whatever reason, just didn't ever take it out. And so we were like, okay, let's start the day off. So we, God, I completely forgot about that.
It would have
We
been
took
quite the
it.
montage of us just skipping around in the park with the drone
We
flying around,
literally took
skipping
it to a
around through the
park,
mall with our
and
bags and our shopping. And
yep, getting
anyway,
getting orange mocha frappuccinos. No, I would have if it was available. So anyway, so we watched it, and I'll be honest, I was a little bit less enamored with it at the time, and I think part of what happened was that it was just a long day, and so a 3.5 hour movie at the end of a long day like that, um, maybe I should have taken a nap before I watched it. I don't know. I'm getting old, but it was so it felt it felt long because it is long. So I wasn't sure if it was the right movie, and I had initially actually picked as my sort of "We Rest Our Case" final movie. Um, if we got to this point, was going to be The Color of Money, and I didn't. The more and more I thought about it, I was like, okay, it's got to be The Irishman. And what was my thought process here? Well, The Irishman is basically an amalgamation of Martin Scorsese's entire career. So what do you think of when you think of Martin Scorsese, right? You think of Robert De Niro, you think of Joe Pesci, you think of mafia, you think of gangsters, you think of all these sorts of things. I don't know if that was exactly what Scorsese intended out at the start of his career to be known for, but it just sort of happened that way. And just like Martin Scorsese's career, he obviously kept going after The Irishman. He made Killers of the Flower Moon, which you talked about earlier. That was released last year in 2023. He's got multiple projects. He's got a Frank Sinatra biopic coming up. He's got another Jesus movie coming up. He's the book The Wager that came out last year. He bought the rights to that. He's got that possibly in production. So he's 80 years old, and he's even talked about that. Not enough time for all the stories I want to tell, but he is trying to tell them all. So, he keeps working. But the reason I say that is because I think you could make a good argument for The Irishman is almost the perfect capstone to his career, and everything else is just sort of him kind of coming out of retirement here, right? Because you bring back essentially all of his most prominent actors, with the exception of Leonardo DiCaprio. Harvey Keitel is also in The Irishman in a small role, But so, with the exception of Leonardo DiCaprio, pretty much all of these sort of actors that Martin Scorsese was known for, that you might associate with him, that he made multiple films with, they were all here. Joe Pesci came out of retirement. He had been retired since 2010, I think. And he came out of retirement to make this movie for his good friend Martin Scorsese. And then on top of all that, you throw in legend Al Pacino, who had never worked with Martin Scorsese before. He'd worked with Robert De Niro a few other times. Technically they were in The Godfather Part 2 together, but they never shared a scene. They finally shared a scene in Heat. And then they had a movie called Righteous Kill, which I've never seen, but from what I understand was not very righteous at all. For anybody who's seen it, maybe they can chime in if you guys have seen it. But so this is probably the best circumstance since Heat, that those two were brought together. And no offense to Michael Mann, with probably the best director they've had, probably either of them have had, and together. And so the cast is phenomenal. And I've talked about this throughout the season. There's this format that a lot of these longer sort of epic Scorsese movies have, that he really likes to have it. I call it this sort of build up, tear down method, where you start with somebody who's sort of low on the totem pole. We saw it in Goodfellas, we saw it in Casino, we saw it in The Wolf of Wall Street. We see it in The Irishman, and even in Killers of the Flower Moon. We basically see it as well, where you start off with somebody low on the totem pole. In this case, um, it's Robert De Niro's character. He's just a guy. He sort of, he's a union trucker. He's kind of got some things going on the side, and he, just works his way up. Next thing you know, he meets Joe Pesci's character, and then Joe Pesci's character sort of takes him under his wing. And then all of a sudden, they're getting bigger up in the union. And then he's meeting Jimmy Hoffa, and he's friends with Jimmy Hoffa now, who's Al Pacino. And it's this, he just gets built up here, and then the rest half of the movie we see it come down. And I think we've seen over the years the way Scorsese has evolved and gotten smarter about how to use this format and use it to his advantage and play to his strengths. If you'll remember from earlier in this season, I talked about, as strong as Goodfellas is as a movie, if I have a complaint, it's how it sort of makes the rise a little too fun, and sort of puts us in on it in a way that's maybe a little bit, um a little bit more positive than you would think, given how awful these people are. And then the downfall didn't seem quite as bad as I would think it would be. And then that's part of why I liked Casino. I think it corrected a lot of those mistakes, but still wasn't perfect in its own right. And then, Wolf of Wall Street does it in a bit of a different way as well. But even that had a lot of people sort of complaining that maybe it was a little bit too maybe it glorified a little bit too much. That's probably a better word for what the Goodfellas as well. But maybe it glorified a little bit too much, this rise to the top. And so I think what you see now with, if you start with Goodfellas and come back to here, that's 29 years, almost 3 decades to sort of perfect this formula. And I think we do get it perfected here. We've got just the arc that Robert De Niro's character Frank takes, from union truck driver, just trying to get a little extra money, trying to make his way, trying to make a name for himself, coming up, but having to do tough things. I think you get a very fantastic performance from Robert De Niro. It's very subtle, it's very understated. Pretty much all the performances in these movies, or in this movie, is very understated. Normally, with Joe Pesci, with Al Pacino, especially at this point in his career, right? Like Al Pacino he's a meme now, right? But this movie is probably the only one in the last, I don't know, 15 years where his octave level remains, less than a 10. I mean, that's impressive if you can get Al Pacino to make a movie and do and not have any sort of hoo-ah like Pacinoisms. And it absolutely works. He kills it in this role. He's got his sort of Minnesota accent. I don't know if anybody has seen I can't remember the name of the Doctor Death or something, the movie about Jack Kevorkian. He had a very similar accent in that movie. But it was, so you take that, and then you've got, again, Joe Pesci, who's known for his sort of tough guy, what do you think I'm funny, I'm a clown, I amuse you, all this sort of stuff. But that's not the Joe Pesci we get here. Instead, we get a more understated, a much more subdued Joe Pesci. And it's what I think the second time, what really sort of grabbed me is, you can see when, especially if you kind of view it in the context of a career arc for not only Martin Scorsese but these actors as well, you can sort of see it, like these actors know each other for a long time. They're all very good friends. Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro have been in a ton of movies together. Al Pacino and Robert De Niro said they've been friends for years. They've been in multiple movies together. Harvey Keitel, same deal. Like, but those main three of Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, and Al Pacino, all of them together, and then the way that they play off each other in their scenes, and it's something that can only come from a director of Martin Scorsese's caliber, working with actors of these calibers, and having a lot of the familiarity that he does with them. And when you like the scene where Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci are in a diner, it's near the end of the movie, and the Joe Pesci's character Russ tells Frank in not so many words, you know, we got to kill Jimmy Hoffa. And this whole movie they spent, and Frank was like, okay, he gets in with Jimmy Hoffa, he becomes friends with him. Lots of people in this movie are using other people for power, using other people for status, or just climbing on top of people. But him and Russ and Jimmy were true friends. They believed in each other, they loved each other, they were friends. They talked, there was shortly before this scene, uh, Russ, Joe Pesci's character, gives this the famous ring to Frank and says, there's only three people in the world that have this ring. You are now one of them. He's like, nobody can fuck with you. You're with me now. I mean, they were always sort of together, but this was sort of the cherry on the top. He's like, this is it. Nobody's messing with you. You have completely arrived. And there's this pride. He always wears the ring now. You can see it in his eyes, and that was a very great scene. But then, shortly after, they're in this diner. Russ tells him, "Hey, we've got to do this." And you see Robert De Niro. He doesn't argue. He doesn't yell. He sits back in his chair and he just like glances up at the ceiling. It's hard for him to make eye contact. And then he looks back at him, sort of like, did you say what I just think you said? Are you serious? And Russ says, that's the way it's got to be. I chose us over him. And it's like, this is an incredibly powerful moment and just a phenomenally directed, phenomenally acted scene. You could, a scene like that, you could over edit it and try and make it, close up of the eyes and do all this kind of stuff. But he just sits the camera there and he lets De Niro and Pesci do their work and play it out. And so, you know, at this point in Scorsese's career, to have that sort of restraint to let that scene just sort of play out and just frame it up and just show all that emotion and get that emotion out of the actors, but in such a subtle way. Like it's just that sort of, I think, with last season, it was when I picked War of the Worlds, it was sort of a greatest hits of Spielberg, right? It was this is all the things that he's done well, and he did them just as well as he'd done them before, right? And so that was kind of, but it was all kind of mashed up in this movie. Well, with Scorsese this year, I think the big difference is I think Scorsese, he may have started off with maybe a few more weaknesses as a director than Spielberg, but his improvement as a director over the years, I think, is greater. Partly because of that, and partly because maybe he's a better director than Spielberg. I don't know. That's a tough choice, but point being, I think The Irishman shows not only how great Scorsese is, but also how much he's evolved over the years and how important that is to evolve as a director. And I think with this cast and with Martin Scorsese, and there's just so, we've said this a few times about Spike Lee this season, and not so much about Martin Scorsese. That there are movies that only Spike Lee could have made, but a lot of the movies that Martin Scorsese, maybe other people could have done it, and they could have done it, you know, maybe just as good. This is one of the cases where I don't know if that's true. I think it takes Martin Scorsese having the career that he's had, having the movies that he's had, Goodfellas, Casino, Taxi Driver, working with these actors in the way that he has to be able to learn to get to the point that he's at this movie. If you take Christopher Nolan and you put him and you made this, I think he could make a good movie called The Irishman. I think Steven Spielberg could make a good movie called The Irishman about about this same, with this same script, but I don't think they would make this movie. And I think that's important. And I think this little flavor that Scorsese makes that he has, that he adds to The Irishman, that makes it so great and so compelling despite its incredibly long runtime, is something that very few directors can do, if any, besides him. And that's why I think it's the perfect way to sort of encapsulate Scorsese's greatness, to go along with all the movies we've seen, where not only does he do what he's done, but this shows his evolution and how he's done it, and especially the ending, because we get a very subdued ending that is, it's heartbreaking. You've got this guy, Robert De Niro's character Frank, who decides, even they're trying to, there's two investigators that come and talk to him in a nursing home, and they're trying to just get some closure on Jimmy Hoffa. Where is he? What happened? And Frank says, "You got to talk to my lawyer." And the guy's like, "He's dead, Frank. They're all dead. You're not protecting anybody. Everyone's dead. Just tell us what happened." And he still doesn't. He literally will take it to his grave with him, out of this sort of weird, trumped up sense of loyalty that he still has to these people, because he loved them and because he had some shame for what he did. And then the final scene, he's talking to the priest. The priest leaves and he says, "Hey, just can you leave the door open just a little bit? I don't like it closed the whole way." And it's just open a little bit, and the camera fades back, or camera tracks backwards, and it's Robert De Niro, Frank, alone in his room. His kids have abandoned him. His wife died. All Russ died. He killed Jimmy. All his friends, everyone, they're all dead. He's all alone, and it's this heartbreaking scene. But it's you feel bad in the sense that, like, there's some sympathy there, but you you also feel like it's deserved. He did horrible things, and this man, and he's sort of coming to grips with that, and he knows he deserves to be alone, and that's a horrible thing. And that sort of gut wrenching feeling is something that I don't think 30 years before Scorsese would have ended a movie with. And I think to show how far he's come as a director is really impressive. And that's why I think The Irishman is a perfect example of what makes Scorsese what should make Scorsese the winner this season.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that
I
eloquent
rest my case.
and well-spoken elucidation of the virtues of the Irishman. Nate, would you care to present your case for Crooklyn?
So first of all, I'll start by saying, I agree with a lot of what Jeff said. The Irishman is a movie that I like a lot. I picked.
No agreeing here. I want knives out. I want stabbing into
Okay.
the guts.
Don't
Twist
just.
that thing.
Hey, I'm
You
easing
need to
in.
throw.
I'm easing in.
You need
Okay.
to throw the gun
I need
into
to-
the river
Yeah.
after what you've done to me.
All right. I'm easing in. Okay.
This is Duel of the Greats, not
Okay.
Love Fest.
So I chose Spike Lee's Crooklyn, and I chose it honestly. I think for probably a lot of the same reasons that Jeff chose The Irishman. That I think that a movie like this, it's probably not Spike Lee's best movie, but I think it really encapsulates who he is as a filmmaker and the kind of stories that he is able to tell. Something that Jeff mentioned several times in his talking about The Irishman is all these great actors, all these geniuses that Martin Scorsese gets to work with. I think it's more powerful and more poignant that Spike Lee is able to pull, if not same kind of, if not better performances out of people who are completely unknown. There's a moment in this movie Crooklyn where it's very much kind of a slice of life movie. It's sort of one of those movies that I would describe as nothing happens and at the same time everything kind of happens. Um, Kind of this slice of life movie from, Brooklyn, New York in the 1970s, and this family just kind of living their lives. And it centers around primarily the daughter, kind of this lone daughter in this family. And spoiler alert, but it kind of gets to the end of the movie, and her mother dies. Her mother passes away. And this is a completely unknown, this is a child actor working with other child actors. And there are these brothers, particularly this one brother that is just awful to her the entire movie. He beats up on her, puts her in a headlock, punches her like physically, like kind of beats up on her in really mean ways, and they're really mean and dismissive of her. And her mom has died, and she's sitting on the couch, and this brother comes over to her, and he sits down on the couch next to his sister, and he just slowly reaches over and he takes her hand. And to me, that scene, to pull that kind of a performance out of two actors who are not Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, two actors who are unknown child actors, I think speaks volumes about Spike Lee's craft and the kind of stories that only he can tell. His entire filmography is predicated on this idea that he is the only filmmaker that can tell these kind of stories. I think Martin Scorsese is an American genius. But when I look at his entire filmography, when I look at his very best movies, I am often reminded, and I'm admitting this is my opinion, it's completely subjective. I'm reminded of other movies by other filmmakers that are doing exactly what he does, only better. When I look at, something like The Departed and the relationship between criminals and police officers, I think of the movie Heat. I think of the movie LA Confidential. I think of the movie The Town. These are movies that are just more entertaining to me than The Departed. And a lot of Martin Scorsese's filmography, that's just the sense that I get. I always get the sense that it's great, but there's other filmmakers that have done exactly what he has done better. There is no other filmmaker that has ever lived that could make a movie like Crooklyn and could make it with the craft and compassion that Spike Lee has made it. And I think that you could say that about a number of his films. You could certainly say it about something as controversial as Bamboozled. There's no other film, and there's no other American filmmaker that would ever attempt to make such a movie. Certainly something like Do the Right Thing, which we've previously kind of talked about, is probably kind of his masterpiece. And in a lot of ways, Crooklyn is kind of a spiritual successor to Do the Right Thing. It probably isn't, there's a little bit more levity to it. It's not quite as serious in what it's doing, but it kind of sort of depicts the same kind of neighborhood and the same kind of people. But I'm always so amazed by what Spike Lee is able to do with these small moments. There's another really great moment in this movie where there is a neighbor that the kids get into this conflict with this neighbor that lives kind of on they walk up a stoop to go up to their apartment, and there's a guy kind of lives underneath them. And there's kind of this unanswered question of there's this trash being thrown in this little lot on the sidewalk of like, is it the kids in this family that are doing it, or is it him that's doing it? And it kind of goes back and forth on that notion. You kind of see both of them doing it at various points. And this guy is kind of a weird, peculiar guy. It never states this explicitly, but he probably has some kind of a developmental disability. And they they get into these arguments with him, and at one point he actually gets into a fight with another one of the tenants, and he gets punched, and it's kind of this really hard thing to watch. And no one really ever treats him with any kind of humanity, and the kids kind of follow in a weird way. They kind of follow their mother's lead. Their mom is real dismissive of him as well. And there's this one moment where they're always complaining that his apartment stinks, that there's a really bad odor that comes from his apartment. And their father, the patriarch of this family, walks by, and he's kind of talking to him. And he kind of, he kind of eases some tensions, and he de-escalates the situation. He looks at the guy and he says, "Hey, you ever need me to, I'll come into your apartment and I'm going to help you clean it up. You need to just ask me, okay?" And you see this brief moment where it shows the kids looking at their father, showing this person humanity. And it never has to say, Spike Lee never has to say, "Okay, I'm teaching you a lesson." These kids are learning a lesson from their father. It's these small little micro moments where he is doing this all the time. And this movie just has these little moments like that sprinkled throughout. Again, it's certainly not Spike Lee's most exciting movie. It's kind of a slice of life. But I'll tell you, I watched it back in college, and I hadn't watched it since college, and I just watched it again for this. I kind of remembered it, and it's one that I thought was going to be pretty representative of who he was, and it just doesn't leave me. I watched it a week ago, And it just stays with me. There's all these moments in this movie that stay with me, and I think it is just a really, really powerful movie. There's a kind of this whole thing of where it shows through the kid's eyes how the family is kind of struggling. The mom is really sick, and certain things are going to kind of start to fall apart. This one of the brothers is really obsessed with the New York Knicks. And I think the New York Knicks, I'd have to look this up, Brandon, you can look this up for me. The New York Knicks, I think, won the NBA title in 1972. So I think it's alluding to the fact that this movie takes place probably in that year. This kid's obsessed with the Knicks and he gets Knicks tickets to the finals. And they win, the Knicks win. You don't see any scene from that. There's no footage of him watching this, and he just walks in the door and he just kind of goes up and this whole family's kind of sitting there and he just goes, the Knicks won the world title, and then he just walks upstairs. And you just see how these kids are being so affected by these things going on at home and their mother's illness, and if they're going to be able to move on as a family. And it feels like it is an experience. This is what Spike Lee is able to do, is it is an experience that is entirely outside my experience in every possible way. Okay, I am a white man born in Kansas in the 1980s. This is really told through the eyes of a young black girl in Brooklyn, New York in the 1970s. And these moments come along, and I feel like I'm part of this family. And that is something that is really what Spike Lee, I think, has tried to do his whole career, is that he has some very intense messaging in his movies. And when you are someone that looks like me and looks like all the people on this podcast, all you can do is you can be thankful that we have a filmmaker like Spike Lee, and you can sit back and you can watch and you can learn. And I learn so much about these experiences of these people that it actually tricks me at times into thinking like, wow, like this family feels like mine. It feels like my own family. And even though it's not, and even though I can never understand those experiences, the filmmaking is so powerful and so profound that he actually can bring you into those worlds, if but for a moment. And the movie ends and you realize that the world isn't like that, and we're separated by time and space, and still to this day, a lot of racial constraints in this country. And he has tackled it his entire career, and I am just I'm always left amazed by some of these movies that he has made and has been able to make his entire career. And again, I think the ultimate argument for him is that he's the only American filmmaker who could have done it. And certainly when he started, there weren't really a lot of opportunities for black filmmakers. He has single-handedly created basically every opportunity for black filmmakers in the United States of America, and he is leaving a really, really, really profound legacy that I think you are going to start to feel. I don't think people really understood it and respected it while he's working. I think our children will start to understand it maybe a little bit more when there's a whole generation of black filmmakers that were influenced by Spike Lee and were influenced by this notion that you could tell these kind of stories and bring these people, show them this worldview and bring them into this world. So that is kind of my final argument for the movie Crooklyn.
All right. So thank you. This is intense. We've come to it finally. Two very passionate.
I didn't think Nate was going to come at me like that. I wasn't going to mention any Spike Lee. I wasn't going to do it.
I told you I was easing in. I told you I was easing in.
Knives
He came
out.
at
Knives out. I think he said other director. There are tons of other directors doing it better. Those were his exact
multiple
words.
other
Exact
directors
words.
doing it
I'm
better.
just saying. I'm just.
Need I remind
again, like,
you that Inside Man came out the same year that Martin Scorsese won Best Director for The Departed. I mean, I'm just gonna say
and
that.
again, if you're gonna bring that up, I kind of prefer Inside Man. I mean, this is what I'm saying.
It
Is
did
just
win
like
on our
I get.
Not
I
against The
did, and
Departed.
that's what I'm saying. It even
Sure,
won on
it
our
wouldn't have
podcast. I just, I don't want to get more into my argument. I
All right,
digress.
all right.
I just
Order in the
I'm
court.
gonna
Order
let,
in the court.
I'm
Bailiff,
gonna let Steve decide. I'm
Brandon?
gonna let Steve decide.
Brandon, we're gonna need you to toss some people out here in a second. Oh man, you guys have made it tough. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I prejudged. I had made a decision before I heard your guys' arguments, based on watching the movies. And your arguments, they both moved me a little bit. One of the arguments, and when I say prejudged, I kept an open mind, of course, but I had a pretty good idea how I wanted to rule, just based on the movies, right? We're human. We're all human. I kind of knew what I felt of watching after watching the movies, and I
An
kind of
important
knew.
theme in Martin Scorsese's work.
But your arguments with such passion, verve, life, and well thought out premises and supporting anecdotes. Excellent. Excellent. So here's the deal, though. This is tough. This is so tough. I don't want to break anyone's heart. Do we do a drum roll? Can we do a drum roll?
Brandon, do we have a drum roll?
Post.
Do we have
Put it in post. Both of these guys are, of course, like I think Nate, you said, Martin Scorsese is a American. Would you call him American genius?
American genius, and they both are. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Spike Lee is a one of one, and just an icon. Nobody else could be doing what he is doing. One of these guys, though, is talking about and addressing issues that just go to the core of who we are as it's so hard because one of the guys is talking about who we are at our core as people, identity, guilt, what it means to be a man. Martin Scorsese, I mean, that's the theme of his movies, right? I think, arguably, it's religion, it's guilt, but what it means to be a man, to be a person, to what is your identity, and what happens if that is challenged in many ways, but it all kind of comes back to that. And I don't think he did a very good job in The Irishman in addressing that. And I also think it was a real mistake to do the de-aging, and it took me out of it. And I think that really, really, really hurt the chances for that film to take this week. Crooklyn is not a perfect movie. There's a heart to it, though. And you can feel the love in it. And it's because it's autobiographical. I don't know. Nate, you didn't even mention that in your argument. So I shouldn't make the argument for you, but it's kind of Spike Lee and Joy Lee's family growing up. The girl is kind of based on Joy Lee, Spike Lee's sister. It's not 100% autobiographical.
I will add, so like she co-wrote it. Like
yes,
he kind of,
yeah.
I should have said that he wrote it with his siblings. Yes,
I did notice
very
that
autobiographical,
cool. And she was in it as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
You have
thoughts?
I just want to say, if we're talking about technical faux pas here, nobody has brought up the aspect ratio.
The anamorphic lens when they get to
that
Virginia.
literally gave me a headache.
It hurt my eyes and gave me a headache as well. It was a bad choice on Spike Lee's part. I get why he was trying to do it, but I didn't like that either.
But I also agree that the de-aging was stupid because maybe Robert De Niro's face doesn't look like he's 80, but he moves like he's 80.
It actively took me out of the movie.
It's his gait. It's his gait.
And like that scene where he's like kicking the beating up the shop owner,
throwing the guns over into the water.
Yeah, and just holding the guns, it looked like he had arthritic hands. It was terrible. It
actively hurt the film.
If I've brought this up to people too. If we had the technology in 1974 to do that, then we may not have Robert De Niro today because they would have de-aged Marlon Brando.
Yeah, that's true.
To play the young Vito Corleone character, and Robert De Niro wouldn't have won that Oscar. Yeah. And who knows if he would have become the actor he is today.
He should have picked a younger actor to play the younger character.
I completely agree with that.
Because some of the best work in the Scorsese universe, I think, is the last 20, 30 minutes of The Irishman. It's astounding. I don't get the. I think the performance are almost too understated, Jeff. I don't get the guilt that you're seeing on De Niro's face. I think it's not there. I think Frank is played as a psychopath almost, a guy who does not have emotion, a guy who is more so concerned with. He's more just kind of confused isn't the right word, but he doesn't feel bad so much as he's just like, what do I got to do just to get things back to even, essentially. Like, I don't know that he necessarily feels guilty.
Can I bring up a counterpoint to this?
Sure.
During the film, he talks multiple times about just following orders. He is verbalizing for us the coping mechanism that he uses
Sure.
to allow himself to create all these horrible acts.
That's true. That's true. You know who else said that?
I do
Nazis.
know. And
Nazis
I think that's
said
exactly the reason why he put that in the movie.
But him wrestling with it at the end, the stuff when he's old, that is some of the best stuff in Martin Scorsese's filmography, I think. But the rest of it,
I have a question for you guys, if I may, about The Irishman. So, the scene. I kind of talked about how somewhat close in proximity, the scenes where Joe Pesci's character gives Robert De Niro the ring and sort of says, I'm choosing you over him, over Jimmy.
mm-hmm.
So, do you guys think that he did that genuinely, the character, obviously, or do you think that he did that thinking that would give Frank that sort of emotional push he needed to be able to carry out this horrible act and kill his friend Jimmy?
Yeah, I think he was a psychopath too. I think he was manipulating him his entire life. That's how I took it.
Yeah.
I read that as him just being manipulated. Yeah.
Okay. Because I think the first time I saw it, I thought it was genuine. And I think that's just part of, like, I want to see the good in people. But this time I saw it, I was like, he's just fucking with this guy. Okay. So I was, okay.
At their heights, so I think I wrote down in one of these movies, Spike Lee has a scope creep issue, and Martin Scorsese has a creep issue. His his movies are at their worst when we have just the creepiest, worst characters. Just people you don't want to root for. You guys know my stance on Raging Bull. Taxi Driver is one of the better movies, but again, I don't like the main character. There's just some really awful people. Now, sometimes that makes for compelling movies, compelling cinema, but sometimes it's just like, fuck me, I don't want to be with these people anymore. Spike Lee's problem, listen to me telling him how to, be successful. But when he is not hitting on all cylinders, it's when he tries to do too much. When he reels that in, which I think he kind of did in Crooklyn, it was like Nate, like you said, it's a movie kind of about nothing, but it's a pretty tight movie about nothing. It doesn't meander. It is intentional in its slice of lifeness. It's not trying to jam in too many themes, I feel like. When he's firing on all cylinders, it's pretty much perfect, and it's talking about things that are just not only resonant with America and what it means to be an American and these things that go through our American history 400 years and we're still dealing with, but like you mentioned, the little things, the micro moments, the things that make you feel that sense of community and love, even if you're not a part of it. Another little thing, I don't even know if this was intentional, but the fact that I have to question whether it was intentional or not, that it could have been intentional, makes the point for me. When the main character is shoplifting in the store, the bodega owner comes over and like realizes what she's doing and tells her something to the effect of like, hey, do you have 10 cents or whatever? That costs 10 cents. Do you have it? She's like, of course not. And he's like, well, you need to get out of here then, give me that and get out of here. Come back when you have it. The very next shot, and again, I don't know if this is intentional or just continuity error. The next shot when she's outside the store and you see her and her friend talking, there's a sign on the window with the advertising that same product that she had. I think it was potato chips, a specific brand of potato chips, and it says that bag of potato chips was 15 cents. So is this bodega owner just cutting her a break because she knows her family is, hurting a little bit? It's the sense of community that, again, I don't know if that was intentional. Maybe they just fucked it up. But the fact that he's created a movie that you can feel the community just jump off the screen. I mean, it's not just this movie, He's so good at doing that. Nate, like you mentioned, you feel like you're a part of it. Scorsese can do that too, but I don't want to be part of his movies a lot. And, some of that's personal choice, but on the whole, on the balance, based on their uniqueness, their skill, their ability to talk about things that we need to talk about, and honestly, their legacy, what I assume their legacy is going to be, I think Spike Lee's got to take it. He's our winner based on this week and based on the body of work of the movies we've watched. That's my answer. Took us a long time to get there, but that's my answer.
Let's go.
That's the ruling, baby. Spike Lee, Crooklyn beats The Irishman. Week 13.
Wow.
He takes it.
You could have taken revenge on Nate for picking Spielberg last year, but
I should have.
You didn't.
Nate agrees with me. That's your cat, Nate, by the way.
That is my
or
cat.
Jeff's cat, Nate.
Sorry about that.
Of course he knows who his cat is.
We have to keep him inside tonight because it's storming outside, so he's not happy about it.
So there you go, people. I wanted
what
to
was your
talk
decision?
about.
What were you thinking you were going to choose?
So I rewatched.
You said you kind of came in with.
I disliked The Irishman this time. When Jeff and I watched it on Jeff and Steve's Day of Fun, I liked it. Rewatching it now, after seeing a ton of other Martin Scorsese movies, I kind of found it. I wrote down that I felt kind of like it was lazy. I thought parts of it.
Itself.
Yeah. Well, Nate, some of the things you said about Casino, I felt that it was kind of that way. It's kind of like a greatest hits, like a Scorsese's greatest hits, but without the passion. It's almost like he just kind of, but Jeff, you did sway me. Some of you're talking about the performances, especially. You did get me. Once I started thinking about that more and hearing your analysis, I'm like, yeah, the way that those guys play off each other really, really is something special. And you can't replicate that unless they've been doing it for so long. And I do think there is something to be said about Scorsese bringing that out in them. But ultimately, the de-aging, I think, was just a terrible, terrible idea. The fact that it's so long. Now, again, length does not alone make a bad movie. But at a certain point, you have to respect the medium you're working in. And you got to respect the audience. And if you want us to pay attention to these small facial tics and really get the true, impact of these close-up, like the diner scene you were talking about, to really appreciate that, I got to be locked in and paying attention. At this point, it's 3 hours and fucking 40 minutes into the goddamn movie. I'm tired. I'm like, what are we doing here? And part of that's me, but I'm obviously not the only person. This was a common complaint, the length of the movie. So, to a certain extent, I think he just made some interesting decisions that didn't pay off in terms of making the movie. But, so I went and I watched The Color of Money because you picked it first, and I'd never seen it. And I don't think I've ever seen a movie with Paul Newman, which kind of weirded me out once I realized that. And if you had picked The Color of Money, I may have made, the decision may have been different. As I watched The Color of Money...
Marty, I'm sorry.
Don't say that. Don't say that. That's going to kill him. Oh.
I ultimately don't think so, because I kind of think the body of work and the themes and the stuff we were talking about with Spike Lee, it just, it weighs so much. The fact that he's willing to tackle some of these things and be the person that he is, frankly, you know what I mean? I think that just weighs so much more. He goes so big. Anyway, but The Color of Money, I think, is a way better movie than The Irishman, and I think it's a way better Martin Scorsese movie. Talk about a movie about identity. You've seen it, Jet. The scene
I think of The Color of Money as a very unique, almost like After Hours. I don't think of that as like it's not your typical Martin Scorsese movie, and that's almost why I picked it. Especially when you consider like Tom Cruise, right? Like
Tom Cruise is a wild card.
He's not a Martin Scorsese actor, but he nails it. I mean, that
aside from Tom Cruise, though, a lot of it is Martin Scorsese. Like, okay, one big thing that's missing from The Irishman, unless my untrained eye just didn't notice it, and you guys can tell me this. Are there any classic Martin Scorsese camera shots in this fucking movie? Like, could Jeff Nichols have shot this movie? I just watched The Bike Riders.
Does Scorsese have any classic camera shots?
He does.
The dolly shot and the
like in the way that Spike Lee
classics.
does.
Yeah, I don't know if it's
like the dolly through
Scorsese.
like the introduction scenes in the bars and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he doesn't really have a scene like that.
He does violence in wide shots a lot. So like when Jimmy Hoffa gets killed, it's Martin Scorsese has talked about this, how like violence now is almost more impactful when you see it on screen when you just see it as a wide shot. It's not glamorized at all. You really feel this, I think, if you've seen the movie Killers of the Flower Moon, that you see these really horrendous murders, and they're just kind of in wide. It's just very much like a statement, kind of a matter of fact to it. I've always argued, I think that's something that he kind of pulled from a director that's done that for years, is David Fincher. He kind of puts violence in wide shots. If you've ever seen the movie Zodiac, there's
everything in wide shots.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the movie Zodiac, which happens to be like my favorite movie of all time, the Lake Berryessa scene where the Zodiac killer stabs this young couple.
Yeah, what a scene.
It's like the most horrific scene ever committed to film, but it's horrific because it's not played up. There's no music. It's not intended to be scary, and he does it in a wide shot, and it's just so matter of fact. And I think Scorsese has kind of taken that. I don't know if it's a signature Scorsese thing, but I do see that a little bit in The Irishman, that there's just stuff kind of being done in wide shots that I think is indicative of his filmmaking now.
Because as much as I love Scorsese, I don't ever look at him as someone who's got super great camera work. Like his editing is good. His like, not that the camera work is. I shouldn't say it's not that it is super good, but like super interesting or unique camera work. Like I think it's fine. I think it serves a purpose, but it's not flashy. He's not Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if you guys had any other.
I think it is a lot of way though but I think though in a way that kind of is his style. I mean, what you're describing.
Yeah. That's a good point.
What you're describing, even though it's not flashy, that is a style, and that is, I think, very much a part of his craft that I think he's kind of molded. I've really started to see that in more of his recent work, where it's probably less flashy, and I think that is intentional in a lot of ways.
Well, yeah, because I think in his older movies, and maybe I'm just totally off base, but I thought he would do this thing where he would pan, do a quick kind of a medium or even almost not quite a close up, but an example in The Color of Money. There's two guys like leaning over a pool table, and he'd do like a quick pan. He'd look at somebody's face and then just pan over. It wouldn't be like a cut. It would be like pan,
like
pan.
A swish stick.
Yeah. And I feel like he used to do that quite a bit, and I didn't see anything like that in The Irishman. Anyway, but that's just one example. The dialogue, there's some real good dialogue, which again, that's writing. That's the screenwriter too, not just him. But I don't know, and just the themes too. The themes in The Color of Money, like again, identity, guilt, what it means to be a man. Not man, dude with a dick, but man, just a person. That manifests itself as man, person with a dick, because of Scorsese and the Catholic, the patriarchy. But you know what I mean? That's kind of where we're at.
So it's also worth noting that with The Color of Money, especially when you're talking about Paul Newman, like that character is actually a character he's playing from The Hustler.
Yeah, that's true.
So
it's a sequel. Yeah, I mean, Martin Scorsese
did not direct the original of. So nor did he have anything, as far as I know, have anything to do with it. It was just for whatever reason. I don't know why. Maybe did in any of your books did they ever say how he winded up with The Color of Money and that being a sequel? Was it one of
I
those
didn't.
things where it was like a spec script and they were like, hold on, we can turn this into a pseudo sequel to the Hustler
I don't
action
know.
movie?
I didn't get there. Didn't get that far.
God, you're the guy. You're the
I
research guy.
well, we didn't pick it as the movie, so I didn't read it.
You went out above and beyond and watched it. You couldn't do it. You couldn't
It was a
open to
snap
the Color of
decision.
Money chapter.
It's a snap
enough.
decision, like the crack of the 9 ball being broken on the brick.
That was sound design.
I-
That was very good.
You know what else
I
from
will
that movie?
say,
Just
no, go ahead.
totally random trivia. The name of my favorite video game franchise, Doom, comes from that movie. When he, yeah, what's his face? I'm telling you guys, hit in the head. Tom Cruise. How do you forget Tom Cruise?
Biggest movie
When
star
his character has he's got his little stick in his little stick case, his pool cue case, and one of the other guys he's getting ready to play is like, "What you got in there?" And Tom Cruise with a big shit-eating grin is like, in here, I got Doom," or something like that.
Okay.
It's a stupid line, but
Look at
that's
that.
where John Carmack says they came up with the name of the movie or the game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Look at
Anyway,
I will say something that I learned about Martin Scorsese this season is on this notion that like when you identify what Martin Scorsese does best, and in my opinion, there's other filmmakers that do that in a more enjoyable way for me.
Just
My favorite movies are
you
the
just
movies
love
that are
twisting
that
the
are.
knife, don't you?
I mean, I just I wrote down like a million
I'm just being
examples, but
honest.
no,
I'm
no,
just
no.
being
I'm
honest.
about to, I'm about to say something positive about it. What I discovered is my favorite Martin Scorsese movies are the movies that are not at all like what he does. I mean, we've talked about this. At The Aviator is my favorite of his movies, which isn't. You don't
After
think of Martin
Hours, for
Scorsese.
God's
One of
sake.
your favorite movies of all
That's
time, no less.
the two that I wrote were The Aviator and After Hours, are maybe my two favorite movie of his that aren't anything. And I didn't, I think we all agree that Cape Fear was silly, but shit, it stayed with us, and
And I
we
still think
continue to
about that
talk
movie
about it, and
every fucking
still
day.
think about it.
I wake up
Like,
seeing his face on that stupid boat as he's singing that goddamn hymn. Ugh.
and I just, when I look at all these other movies that he's done, and I kind of compare them to other movies by other filmmakers, I think it's like The Aviator. Maybe it's probably my favorite biopic of all time. And you don't think of Martin Scorsese. Oh, he's the Hollywood biopic guy. That's what he does. He makes big movies about real people in their life. That's not really who he is. Certainly, After Hours is not anything like who he is. And yet, I kind of found that when he was doing something really different, that is kind of what I ultimately liked, and
Yeah.
ultimately I thought what I felt like he kind of does better than a lot of
It's
other filmmakers.
it's interesting because you say that, and like intrinsically I agree, but then you think about all his like Goodfellas based on a true story, Casino based on a true story, The Aviator.
They're not biopic.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
That's what I'm saying, though. That's what I'm saying. That's why I said based on a true story, and I didn't say biopic because they aren't. They truly aren't biopic. But it is kind of interesting that there is that sort of um,
yeah.
slight sort of dichotomy there, where it even though it's not biopics,
Yeah.
there's still lots of true stories that he's pulling from.
I've found the same thing that's my favorite thing about doing this podcast is coming to a better appreciation of these directors. But I realized I like Martin Scorsese's gangster movies the least of all of his movies. Like
Yeah.
just writ large, his gangster movies are not good, but they're not movies I like to watch.
Yeah, I think
except for The Departed.
As much as I love Scorsese, it was nice to see, some of the movies that I hadn't seen, and specifically After Hours. Love that movie. That has crept up into being one of my favorite Scorsese movies. And I think, um, Taxi Driver has stuck with me a lot more this time than last time. I haven't watched it since I was in college, and that movie has stuck with me quite a bit more this after watching it the second time than when I watched it the first time. And yeah, it's the gangster movies, and I think a reason a lot of people like them is because it's that sort of I don't know exactly what the effect is called, but where people misunderstand the message, trying to be, when people idolize Tyler Durden
Yeah.
Club for the entirely wrong reasons, things like that, so it's like, oh, they think it's awesome to be, they want to be Henry Hill in Goodfellas, they want to be whoever in these movies when they shouldn't want that. So that always kind of turned me off a little bit about those, but then I think especially in the world we live in today, I think it makes it even a little bit more, kind of feels dirty, a little bit, and that's why I kind of have those issues with it. And I think that's it's a legitimate criticism of Scorsese. And
I think it's
go ahead.
well, I was going to know to add to your point. I mean, I think I did not like the movie Killers of the Flower Moon, his most recent movie,
I thought it was okay.
and I think to your point though, Jeff, is that it's so limiting. And like you have this story about indigenous people being murdered, and you take the perspective of the murderers, which isn't really what the book is about. The book is about the indigenous people who are being murdered and the FBI agents investigating it. And it's so I think what I disliked about that movie and what made me feel so weird, and maybe this is just changing times, what made me feel so weird about it is just like, that's a story we told. We took this great book and about this, really important story that needed to be told about, this, one part of what is a much larger massacre, really a Holocaust of an entire group of people in this country. And he's taking the perspective of I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio's character is insufferable in that movie.
It's awful.
He's
He's a
dumb
creep
as a
creep.
box of rocks. Oh my God, he's awful. And look, DiCaprio
It's a very
plays him
good
great. Like,
performance. Yeah.
I don't have an issue with it, but it's just like, this guy is an idiot and he's manipulated into just murdering people. I don't know. I was really
and
turned off
and I
by
will
it.
say the scenes I liked best from that movie were the ones that delved deeper into the Osage culture, and I thought that was really interesting. And I think, because this was a hot topic when that movie was released, and I think Scorsese's response to this as a hot topic was, both sort of self-aware and also sort of maybe even a little arrogant, because you his response was, look, that is a story that should absolutely be told about the native people, about the Osage people, and how, um, you know how they dealt with what happened to them and what was this evil that was perpetrated on them. But he said, I'm not the person to tell that story, and so I have to tell the story that I can tell. And I think that's a self-aware response, but at the same time, there's a level of arrogance there where it's like, don't tell the story, be the producer, and
Right.
go
Like you're
find
the
the
most
native
powerful guy in
director that
Hollywood.
nobody knows,
Right.
and get that person to direct the movie. Like, who's isn't is the guy who directed, because I'm trying to think of, like, do I even know of any native directors that could have, is that Carrie Joe Fukunaga who did the um True Detective season 1? I cannot remember if he
Yes.
is he
Yes.
native?
I know he did season 1. He was like the creator of the show and he did season
Yes.
1. I don't know if he did the other seasons.
But is he a native director though? Is he a Native American?
I'll look it up.
Because I was
I
even
want to
trying to think.
say that
I feel like I thought
like
maybe he was, but I'm not sure.
Japanese American and Swedish American.
Ah, damn, never mind.
Japanese
Well,
American.
okay. Well, point being, go find that guy. Go
I-
find the guy or girl who can make that movie from an Osage perspective. You found the actors. You found Lily Gladstone, who gave a freaking nails performance. Go find the director too, and be a producer and help guide this director, and make a name for himself, and tell the story that needs to be told.
I hear what you're saying, and I think there is some of that, but still, the name Martin Scorsese is a huge draw, and shedding light on that story with that name on it as director brings something to it. And I thought the way he did it and the way he framed it as, these are the way these this is a crime, the way this story has been buried, and the way that he framed up that movie, I thought he did a very good job with it.
Well, the best scene where he kind of admits it in the movie, where he does almost in a sense where he's admitting kind of this guilt that he can only tell this one
Yeah,
way,
that's the best part of
is
the
the
movie.
very last scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The very last scene is the
literally
best
him.
part of the movie where where it's him. They're doing it as like an old radio play, and it shows how like this shit gets sanitized. This is exactly how our country's history gets told. That it almost becomes like this silly little radio play with these little sound effects and things, and you kind of see the story play out, and it makes it sort of sad, at the end of it, just because that's the way that the history is told.
Yeah. And so, I well, I don't necessarily take as harsh of a view as you do, Nate, in terms of um, Scorsese's sort of lack of uniqueness, I suppose, or whatever you want to call it. Um,
Well,
I,
gosh, and
I
he's
do I
so
do think
much.
I do think there is a feeling. I do think there is a atmosphere. There is an ability that Scorsese brings. Maybe you could have somebody make movies that like is The Town comparable to The Departed? Absolutely. I love The Town. It's a great movie. But The Town is not The Departed, and I think there's something in the magic of The Departed that is very much Martin Scorsese that he brings to all his movies. And there are even some where I would say Taxi Driver, something like that. I don't know how many people could make that movie, and that's so there's a little bit more credit I think that I give him in that regard, while also admitting that you know there's there's a lot of swings, there's a lot of hits, there's a lot of misses too. I think maybe Spike Lee might have a little bit more misses in his category, but if we want to shift the discussion to Spike Lee, I think for me the the singular most impressive thing of all the movies, everything that we've looked at this season, the singular most impressive thing that has been done that I have seen that has stuck with me is what Spike Lee did with Bamboozled. I simply cannot stop thinking about that movie. It is fantastic. I cannot believe I hadn't seen it before. I can't believe people don't talk about this movie more. I can't believe it didn't get more awards recognition. I mean, I we talked about it at the time, and I almost think it has to be due to the topic, and people just wanted to steer clear because it was uh, such a heavy topic. But I mean, I definitely agree that there's a lot of stuff that Spike Lee does that only Spike Lee could do, but nothing more so than that movie. And that is the movie of all of them, Scorsese's or Lee's, that we've watched this year, that this season, that has stuck with me. And one of the reasons I love doing this podcast is because of that, seeing movies like that I wouldn't like. I never would have seen Bamboozled on my own, probably. Maybe if somebody sat me down and was like, "You have to watch this," and really advocated for it, but I literally have never heard anybody advocate for that movie, and I've never heard anybody talk about it. It rarely comes up in any sort of subreddits or any sort of Twitter online social discussions. Nobody talks about this movie, and I don't understand why. Like, this should be a seminal movie in American cinema, and nobody ever talks about it. And I can't stop thinking about it. It is a singular achievement, and it blows my mind that people can't that we just don't hear more about it.
It's, I mean, certainly at the time, I mean, it was part of our controversy week,
Yeah.
and I think we all stated in one way or another that it still feels pretty hot. It feels pretty controversial, and and it's almost quarter of a century old now. But yeah, I mean, it's a really that's to me that movie is really the essence of, and filmmaking doesn't always have to be this. Filmmaking can be a lot of things. It's an art form, so people can interpret it and look at it, and filmmakers can use it for whatever way they want. But when you talk about filmmaking as an act of bravery, as something courageous, that movie might be the greatest example ever. I mean, that is a, I think I said at the time that the two main performances there
Oh
are
yeah, I was gonna say for everybody
about,
involved, not just Spike Lee. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
yeah, those are the moments where they are applying blackface, or those actors to do that, and what that represents. And oh man, and then the performances that they give in the blood, these really awful stereotype performances that are so, I mean, it's like it's so nuanced and layered because it's like it's such a great performance but it's a great performance because it's so awful and it's so stereotyped and it's it's such a horrible negative depiction of Black Americans. I mean, it's just, I mean, it really is probably two of the bravest film performances ever. And it's just like you said, Jeff, no one talks about that movie. No one ever talks about those performances or what that movie is. And, and I wonder, we talked about this that week. It's shot in a very, I don't want to say cheap, but it's certainly in a very low
It's poor
budget. They
looking.
shot
It
it.
needs a remaster, big time.
Yeah. It needs a remaster. I almost want, that's kind of a movie that I wonder if Spike Lee could, I don't know if you could remaster it, but if you could clean up the original film, I think that would be great. I mean, it's a weird thing that I don't know if he could, I hate to say like remake one of his own movies, but like that's something that maybe he has a little bit more influence now that he could make in kind of a different, bigger way. It did have a little bit, and I think we talked about it. I think it had a little bit of that, he trying to do too much. I had that love
The
triangle that we,
accent for what the Damon
yep,
Wayans
the
was a
accents,
poor
yeah.
choice.
Had had the love triangle, which we kind of,
Yeah,
the Savion Glover character almost used. They sort of used that as the plot point of like why he started to doubt what he was doing. I was like, we were all like, you didn't need that. Like
yeah.
he could have just doubted what he was doing. The film was powerful enough that we did not need a love triangle. So yeah, I mean that's definitely one from this season that has. And again, I'd already seen it, but that one definitely stays with you
And
for a
it's even
significant period of time.
there's a Criterion version, so there's some recognition out there that like okay, this is important. I mean, that's what Criterion is trying to do, like say take what's important for film history and they've recognized something about Bamboozled, but it's just I remember I was just blown away by that movie, and I don't know why we don't hear. I mean, like yeah, like you said, I guess we've listed reasons why we might not hear people talk about it, but man, there should be more. Um, so
Actually, I looked this up because I wanted to double check it. Not only that, just last year, 2023, film was selected for preservation by the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress, being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant.
look at that.
And that's, you typically hear that about pretty famous movies.
Yeah,
And this movie is definitely not that. And it certainly wasn't famous. So there you go. It has some critical recognition.
yeah,
Certainly deserves to be more widely known.
and that's why we do this podcast. So what? Uh, that was probably for me the biggest sort of surprise of this season was Bamboozled and how good that movie was. Um, Maybe another surprise would be how bad Cape Fear was. I don't know that I expected to like it, but I did. I was not prepared for how much that movie sucked. And same for Red Hook Summer. Like that. I mean, I it's really interesting because last season we picked a week like worst movies week, so we were coming in expecting those. That week it was just a theme, this buried secrets theme, and I did not anticipate just hating both those movies, and I did. So that was, um, you know, hate to focus on negative necessarily, but in terms of surprises, I think that was one of my next biggest surprises for me this season. Just man, those movies were awful.
Cape Fear, and I'm like I said, I think about that movie way too often for a movie that's that bad.
Still think that I'd rather we rewatch Cape Fear than New York, New York.
Oh, no
I
question.
still think I
New
still
York, New
think New
York is
York, New
too
York is where
long. At least Cape Fear was like an hour and what 45 minutes. It's like
Cape Fear I
normal.
would watch again as a joke. Like if someone hadn't seen it, I'd be like, "You got it. This is a trip.
Yeah,
You
it's it.
gotta watch this
Yeah,
movie." Like, and I'd probably enjoy it even. New
Right,
York, New
right.
York. I would never.
yeah.
I think I've watched it for the last time.
Because you could argue, there's always the question like, oh, is it so bad it's good, right? And you could make that argument for Cape Fear, but yeah, New York is just bad. It doesn't it doesn't aspire to be more than what it is. It's like because you can sometimes take a movie and say, okay, it really swung for the fences and it just missed, and that's okay. You like that for a director, I don't think that New York missed on some ambitious story it was trying to tell. It just sucked. It just didn't tell a good story. And we talk about unlikable characters. I mean, there are few films that I've seen where I just about hated everybody in the movie. And that I wasn't necessarily don't know that I was supposed to hate. And that's part of the reason why the movie sucked, because it wasn't necessarily super clear if we were supposed to hate these people. At least in Killers of the Flower Moon, it's like, okay, we know these people are shitty and we're supposed to hate them. But
You want to talk about
until Robert De
surprise?
Niro like literally beats his wife in the movie, it's still kind of like, is he supposed to be the villain? And then you finally realize, okay, yeah, he is. But
Yeah, that Robert De Niro, he's not like he plays a piece of shit in like almost all these movies. I'm trying to think of, does he play a good guy in any of these movies? You know, quote unquote good guy. Like
he's a hero and Taxi Driver at the end.
in his own brain.
It's actually funny because I was thinking about this when I was going through the. Sorry, Nate, go ahead.
I think Goodfellas, he's not a good person, but
He's a good fella.
I think he's a good fella, and there's a sense of camaraderie that he is trying to, that he's trying to put, he's not an altogether bad guy compared to, a lot of the other
world that he
people in that
exists
movie.
in, he's
In the
about
world
as
that he
good a guy
exists,
as
he's probably
you
a
can.
great. Exactly, that's a great way to put it. In the world that he exists,
No, there's the scene where he creeps the shit out of Hank's or Henry's wife.
Yeah, I forgot about that part. I'm saying that it's better than the other movies. I'm saying he's a better guy in that than he is. I'd rather hang out with the good fella from Goodfellas than the guy from Killers of the Flower Moon. That's all I'm saying.
It's
like, was his most endearing role the guy from Meet the Fockers? Meet the Parents?
I think actually though, like the argument that we sort of started to just make about him in Goodfellas, I mean, him in Casino, like
he's a real asshole to his wife in that.
I mean, she's also like,
well, she's an asshole too, but that doesn't make.
No, it doesn't make it right. But I mean, he's like, again, in the world that he exists in, that's about as good as you can.
He doesn't like. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, they beat the shit out of people, but like, he doesn't actively kill anyone in Casino, does he?
In Casino, he didn't. That's part of what I was saying, that because he didn't actually kill anybody.
That's the bar. The bar we're trying to clear here.
Is he watching when the guy's head is being squeezed in the vice?
I don't think so.
That was
he's
all
not there. Okay, yeah.
That's Joe Pesci is the crazy one.
Oh well, yeah, he's a complete psychopath in that movie.
It's interesting.
He doesn't kill anyone in Raging Bull. He's just kind of.
Yeah, he's a real paragon of fucking virtue in that movie.
He's in Awakenings, which is not a Martin Scorsese movie. He's perfectly fine in Awakenings. He's a nice guy in Awakenings. Okay.
He's a mob boss seeking therapy and analyze this and analyze that. But
isn't he like a grandpa, like bad grandpa or something?
Oh yeah, bad grandpa was Zac Efron.
Although literally he's the titular bad grandpa.
True. In Heat, he's a nice gangster, right? He's nice to the Amy
I will say
character.
in Heat, something I love about Heat. That's we're not talking about Michael Mann, but I love the movie Heat. I've already brought it up. He does live with a code of honor in Heat that I think is probably not present for his characterization in a lot of other movies. He's really smart to start with. He's an incredibly bright guy in Heat, and I think he certainly has been responsible probably for killing people, but that's not his role. He wants to rob things. He likes to, he's stealing things. He's a career criminal that wants to steal things. In fact, in Heat, because there's always the loose cannon. Heat is like the ultimate cliche of like they get the guy for the job and they're like, is he cool? And then he's never cool.
Never.
The guy kills the security officer for the armored truck, and he gets pissed at that guy. Like, he's pissed that he killed the guy. And that's kind of what prompts a whole little subplot of that whole movie, is that he's totally pissed at this guy because, like, you didn't need to do that. We were good, and you just shot that guy for no reason. He's pissed about that. He's a good guy in Heat. I'm going to say he's a good guy.
So I was as I was looking back through the season before the episode, I was noticing between Robert De Niro and Leonardo DiCaprio, we talked. And Nate, you sort of poked the bear at Martin Scorsese's reliance on all these fantastic actors, as if that's a bad thing. But there are only 2 movies that we talked about that did not involve either Robert De Niro or Leonardo DiCaprio. And if you include Harvey Keitel, who is the 3rd most used actor in Martin Scorsese, then you only have After Hours as a movie that did not contain one of those 3 actors.
That's pretty crazy.
Of the 13
Yeah.
that we looked at. And the first, actually 14, because we did 2 for that first week. Because so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the first 6 movies we talked about all had Robert De Niro. And then before The Irishman, the last 3 movies had Leonardo DiCaprio. And they were both in his most recent movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, that we did not talk about. Whereas the closest we could have, we had 3 movies from Spike Lee that contained, or that had Denzel Washington. And then Delroy Lindo was in at least 2. And I'm trying to think if there's any other connections there. Although then he also had Denzel Washington's son in Black
What
Klansman.
about Turturro? Did you mention Turturro?
I did not.
He's
How many
in
is he in?
he's in both of these guys' movies.
Yeah, he's got a lot of bit roles though. He didn't really have any main roles in either.
Still, he's in a lot.
It's true. It's true.
He's also in The Color of Money.
Also true. So, but yeah, this was a really fun season. There was a lot more stuff that I had not seen, and not only that I had not seen, but stuff that I was just very much not familiar with. Like She's Gotta Have It, I loved, from Spike Lee.
Yeah, I feel good about expanding my Spike Lee knowledge.
Yes, definitely. Because I had only seen Do the Right Thing and Inside Man before this season. And now we've seen all these movies, and I'm really glad that I have, because there are some bangers in here. I already talked about Bamboozled, but Malcolm X, that was one that I knew I should watch, and then didn't, finally did. And
Black Klansman.
Clockers. I had seen some of Black Klansman, but Clockers is another one. That might be my
Clockers is a big
next
surprise.
biggest surprise behind Bamboozled. Like, I loved Clockers. I mean, you know how much I love Casino, and I still picked Clockers to win that week.
I think I was so distracted that week by how much I hated Casino that I really didn't talk about Clockers that much in that episode. I was just shitting on Casino the entire time.
You were. It felt like a personal attack.
Well, because you waited, you're like, I think this movie is better than Goodfellas.
It might be his best movie ever.
It might be his best movie. This means so much to me personally. This movie.
I own the Steelbook. I sleep with it under my pillow every
times.
Oh man. So then what about some movies that we did not talk about? We've kind of hit on some with Scorsese, Killers of the Flower Moon, Gangs of New York is another one. I think we've briefly brought that up a couple times this season. So something interesting is when we talk about The Irishman, Gangs of New York, and Killers of the Flower Moon, Martin Scorsese, with those 3 movies, is the only director in history to have 3 films with 10 or more Oscar nominations that did not win a single one of those nominations.
Holy shit. That's incredible.
31 Oscars between those 3 movies and not a single victory.
What was the first one? The Irishman, The Irishman, Killers of the Flower Moon. Okay. Yeah, so that's incredible. The fact that Daniel Day-Lewis didn't win is the biggest crime out of all 31 of those nominations.
See, I'm kind of glad we didn't talk about Gangs of New York, because I don't really like that movie. But
well, yeah, you're off the podcast. I don't have the power to do that, but you know what? I'm doing it anyway.
It's done. So it's and because there's a Martin Scorsese subreddit, as I'm sure you're all very surprised to to hear, but because after Killers of the Flower Moon didn't win anything at the Oscars, people were posting on it. They were posting that stats where I found it, and they're like, "Oh, what does the Academy have against Martin Scorsese?" And I'm like, "Let's pump the brakes here, people," because like in between those movies, we had The Aviator, where he was nominated for Best Director and Best Picture. That movie won 6 awards. We had The Departed, which won 3 awards, including Best Director and Best Picture. Like it's not like the Academy has some vendetta against Scorsese. Honestly, it's probably the fact that those movies wouldn't have gotten hardly any if it wasn't for Scorsese being attached and being the director on them. Because Gangs of New York, especially, I think if you give that to, I don't even know, some other director, I think that just becomes a like, man, they sure spent a lot of money on that movie type of deal.
Well, that's the
So
thing. He's one of the few directors working, I think, that can get those movies made with that kind of money, right? Like
yeah,
I don't know if that movie gets made without his name attached. So
yeah,
it's
that's a
kind
very
of
good
chicken
point.
or the egg thing, right?
Yeah. But let's see. Trying to think of let's see what other Martin Scorsese. We talked about Color Money that we didn't discuss on the some of these ones I haven't seen Boxcar Bertha. I haven't seen Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. I haven't seen Kundin or Bringing Out the Dead. Hugo, that's another one that I didn't really like. The Wolf of Wall Street, I did like, but it was flawed. Um, and
The Wolf of Wall
Silence.
Street. Yeah, The Wolf of Wall Street. I'm kind of glad we didn't talk about that one. That's probably his biggest movie that we didn't talk about or we didn't watch. That to me is sort of become the greatest offender of people really love that movie for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
And they kind of want to be those characters. And I think that it really skirts the line hard. I enjoyed the movie when it came out, and there's definitely some funny moments in it, but it really skirts that line of, oh man, like you're kind of rooting for them, and it's kind of a weird vibe, and the movie's sort of played off as a comedy, and they're not good people. They're really, really bad people.
No. And I actually sort of read it I think the right way the first time where I was uncomfortable the entire movie. It was very difficult, very hard for me to watch. And but I remember talking to some people afterwards and who had also seen it and they were just like, "Oh man, it was hilarious." And I'm like, That's what you got? That's what you got from that movie?" You know? And so yeah, I definitely agree that you know that was definitely one of his worst offenders. And I personally saw the point that he was trying to make, but I definitely I do agree it sort of skirted that line. And then yeah, it was and they spent so much damn time on like the build up part where it was they had all the money and they were doing all the partying and all this stuff and it just felt a little bit maybe we should tone this down a little bit, but no, he doesn't. That's not what Martin Scorsese does. He doesn't tone down like that. But yeah. Have you seen Silence? Have you seen
Yeah,
I've
I've
seen
seen it.
parts of it, but I've not seen the whole thing. I need to sit down and
It's
watch it again in this post Shogun world.
yeah, it's Silence is it's an interesting movie. I think it has some really good performances. Andrew Garfield is the main actor in it, and I think he gives a kind of a really interesting performance. It's also, I actually for that reason, I think it's a really cool performance because it has a lot of actors that he hasn't ever really used. Adam Driver is in the movie, so it's kind of fun to see the performances that he gets out of those actors. I will tell you that it's kind of one of those movies that it's very long and it's very embedded in his Christian faith. And if your belief system doesn't directly align with that, I think you can get something out of it, but it's a little harder. I think it probably meant more to certain people than it would to other audience members. Certainly, I think if you're a really religious person, um, or claim, that you follow some form of Christianity, I think you'd probably get a lot out of it, because there's some powerful imagery in it. But it's pretty long, and I thought there were elements of it that dragged for quite a bit, and it was kind of boring. But again, I think if nothing else, it is worth it because he does get some pretty good performances out of actors that he hasn't ever worked with before or since.
And I think at the time I remember hearing an interview with him or reading an interview with him where he basically said that he'd been trying to make that movie for years and he did that one essentially solely for himself. So
Yep.
yeah, it wasn't any. I think more so than any other movie of his filmography, he did not take the audience really into account. He just really wanted to make that movie the way he wanted to make it, and more power to him, I suppose. But yeah, honestly, all that stuff was what kind of made me a little bit less disinterested in it, So yeah, but so yeah, what about Spike Lee? All right, what are the movies that we did?
Five Bloods, man. I went and watched that
Five
because of the
Bloods.
podcast.
Another
It's really
another
good.
Coven Wilmot movie, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
that's a Wilmot movie. Good story. I think that it's a good movie. It's definitely worth a watch. I don't think it quite lives up to the promise of its premise as much, maybe, as
I
it
agree with
should.
that.
But I do really like if you'd say the idea of the movie of these five, Vietnam vets who try to go back to Vietnam to find this treasure that this money they've stashed. It's a great idea, and there's an element of that, but I don't feel like it lives up to the promise of the premise. Jungle Fever is a really kind of interesting movie in which he's courting some controversy. It's about an interracial relationship, which it's as time goes on, that I think it's a good thing that maybe that doesn't court as much controversy as it did. It came out in the early '90s, and so that I think was maybe still a little bit more of a hot button topic than it is today. I really like there's a movie that frankly is not very good called Girl Six about it's like I don't know how I would even describe this.
An
A
escort,
sex
right?
telephone, and she's a telephone operator. She's a
Like
sex
a one nine
telephone
hundred.
operator. Yes,
Is
yeah,
that
kind
still
of
a
a one
thing?
nine hundred deal. I don't know. I
It's,
don't have a lot of
it
experience
takes
in
on
it myself.
a new form. It's OnlyFans now. That's the
Ah, good
same
point. Good
theme,
point.
right?
Oh yeah. So I like that one because Spike Lee was very good friends, personal friends with the musician Prince, who I'm a huge fan and scholar of. And Prince, that entire soundtrack is all Prince songs, and he wrote an original song for that movie called, conveniently enough, Girl Six. So it's fun just because it has some good music in it. There's some funny sequences and some good music. Quentin Tarantino is in the movie as an actor and plays kind of this like really sleazy director, kind of this like very aggressive version of himself, which I thought was kind of an interesting choice.
Is
I
there
actually I
an
found it an
aggressive version of Quentin Tarantino out there? I
yeah,
don't
it's
know if
yeah,
I
he's
want to
kind
see
of a,
that.
it's kind of well. What's interesting about it is that like you go back and watch it now, and you're kind of surprised because Spike Lee and Quentin Tarantino kind of had a rift
Yeah, there was
in
big
the
beef,
They
right?
'90s.
did, yeah.
They had a big beef because Tarantino, obviously, he uses the N word in his screenplays, and whether or not you want to say that's appropriate, his use of it with the characters he's using it with is a debate for another time. But he and Spike Lee kind of had a rift, and it's funny to go back and watch that movie and be like, well, Jesus, they liked each other enough that Tarantino was like had this little bit part in this movie
Well, that
of
was
Spike
after, like,
Lee's.
they
So
made up, right? I mean, this is because Girl Six
yeah,
was in the
no,
2000s, right?
no, it
No,
was
that was
like
in
in
the
the
mid
'90s, man.
'90s.
Oh.
It was like 1996, I think.
Oh, my
As a
So
bad.
it would have been
side
like, yeah, it would have been like right in the middle of that. So I don't really get it, but whatever.
note, in terms of sex line operators, if you want a good movie that's about that, you should watch For a Good Time Call. That movie is hilarious, and it is about
Yes,
it is really funny, and
yes.
highly recommended. Neither
I
Spike Lee and Martin Scorsese have nothing to do with that movie, but for a very, very niche, specific topic, that's the movie you want.
I think before we go, the only other thing that I would want to say is both of these filmmakers have done some documentaries, which I think
Yeah,
are
Yes,
we totally
probably
I
we should
pushed for us to
explain.
cover
We
them,
should
and you guys
explain.
were like, "I don't like
I
those." That's exactly how you sound, by the way.
Yeah, that's how I said it. That's how me, the
exactly how I
guy with a college degree in film and media studies, said
I
it.
don't
You
like
got it.
that.
You
that
did.
was
I don't like
that was on me. I said that I personally did not feel like I was equipped to properly view and critique documentaries because documentaries are so
Do
much
you have
more.
eyeballs, Jeff? Do you have a
Well,
mouth? Can you talk about it?
I mean, I can find a topic interesting, but in terms of how well a documentary is made, how well the interviews are staged, how well the editing is, all that sort of stuff around that
Yeah.
makes a documentary, I'm just grossly underprepared to sort of critique or analyze that compared to
Other
your
documentaries.
standard narrative
Yeah.
film.
Well, Nate, I don't know if you were going to say any specific ones, but when the levees broke, yeah, that one is fantastic, utterly fantastic.
That's
About
one.
Hurricane Katrina.
So they both have done stuff with musicians. Obviously, Scorsese, he did. Is it called The Last Waltz? The documentary that he did with the band in the '70s, and
Yeah,
I know he's done a
And
documentary with the Rolling Stones.
he's done a couple with the Rolling Stones, hasn't he?
Shine a Light was one of them, wasn't it?
That sounds
One of
right.
the
And
ones.
then,
Shine a Light is the other one I was good. That's the one
like
with the Rolling Stones.
Rolling Thunder
Yeah.
Review, is that something too, or did I just make that up?
It's called The Last Waltz. I can almost guarantee that's what it's called. If you're listening at this point. Yeah, concert film. 1978 with the band, like Bob Dylan's backing band, the band. That's Martin
Oh yeah,
Scorsese.
Rolling
That's
Thunder Review
also-
is Martin Scorsese. Yeah.
And Bob Dylan's band consisted of lead guitarist Steve Van Zandt, who was in The Sopranos, which takes many
There you go.
references from Scorsese movies. We're
go.
full circle here. Look at that.
The other music one that this is actually just recent. If you're familiar at all with Talking Heads and David Byrne, the kind of lead singer-songwriter of Talking Heads, he did this concert series called American Utopia that they turned into a concert film called American Utopia, and Spike Lee directed that. And I think that was really good, kind of it's pretty standard concert film, but it's David Byrne. If you know anything about him, it's always very interesting and new and unique. The only other ones I'd mention, Spike Lee was obviously very he loves sports and he talked about that frequently. He did a series called Kobe Doing Work, in which they hooked up these like actual microphones to Kobe Bryant in one of his last seasons with the Lakers, and just kind of a cool insight. You really get to hear everything and him talking to people during games and trash talking and just kind of how he thinks through stuff. And then more recently, he did a series called The Captain, which was about Derek Jeter with the New York Yankees, which was I think a series. I know it was on ESPN and I watched a couple episodes of it. I know I didn't watch the whole thing, but what I saw was really good. So both these filmmakers
And
have done a lot of different things.
I believe Martin Scorsese refers to sports as sports ball. So if that tells you anything,
Yeah.
I don't think he knows.
Yeah,
anything
so if
about
you want
sports.
to watch something with sports, Spike Lee is probably going to be more.
And
more your
speaking of
bet.
which, I would actually love for Spike Lee to tackle um, OJ and the OJ case in some way. I know we've seen
Yeah.
it before, and there's a ton out there. Do we really need something? Probably not. But if you want to kind of marry sports and Spike Lee's sort of depth in regards to race and social issues, like that's the sort of perfect amalgamation of all those things for him to dive into. And that's maybe something good to talk about here as we sort of wind down. What's next for both these directors here? And we talked last year. We didn't really know. Um, uh, I think shortly after our season had ended, Ridley Scott had Napoleon on deck. We didn't really know what was next after that. Now he has Gladiator 2 that's coming out in a few months. Steven Spielberg he finally has a movie on the slate, and it's not coming out till next year. But for these two directors, Martin Scorsese, like I said, he's got 3 projects sort of on. I don't know which one is the front, like which one is he's focusing on right now. I think it's a Frank Sinatra biopic, but there was some pushback from the Sinatra family on that, so I don't know where that one's going. But between that and his Jesus movie and The Wager, which is written by the same guy who wrote the book Killers of the Flower Moon, by the way. But those 3 are his next projects. So one of those will come out soon. And then the next for Spike Lee, which has already started filming, that should be out next year, is High and Low, which is a remake of an Akira Kurosawa movie, which I have not seen, but I am a Kurosawa fan. Rashomon is one of my favorites of his. Obviously, Seven Samurai. I mean, that's one of the most influential pieces of cinema in global history. But anyway, so that'll be kind of interesting. I mean, any of those projects excite you? I'm really excited to see what Spike Lee can do with High and Low. Maybe a little tempered because Old Boy was another Asian film that he remade, and the movie Old Boy is very, very difficult to watch, and I will never watch it again. But it was a very good movie, and his remake I did not watch, but from everything I heard, it doesn't even come close to holding a candle to the original. So hopefully that sort of history doesn't repeat itself. But High and Low, from what I understand, is a very different type of movie. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how he tackles that.
Yeah, I'm excited for that too. I mean, I got nothing else to add. I've never seen the original though. I need to watch that first. I mean, I don't know. Should I watch that first? I'm a Kurosawa fan too, but I've never seen that one.
As we're recording this, it is the month of July. I'm not sure if this episode will be out in the month of July or not. I can't remember our schedule here on that, but Barnes and Noble has a 50% off Criterion sale. That is, they do it twice a year, and July is one of the months they do it. It's going on now. It's actually July 2nd. We're recording this, so it just started. And that is one of I actually want to, because of the season, I want to buy After Hours, and then I also want to get High and Low for that reason. So we'll see. But maybe we can all watch together. Who knows?
Be cozy.
But yeah, all right. So that's it for this season. Spike Lee takes it, folks. And
Spike
Lee.
It's got to be the shoes.
It's got to be the shoes.
Gotta be the shoes.
We are. I think last season we had narrowed it down so we could kind of give a preview of what season 2 would be. We're still mulling it over. We've got a few different ideas on season 3, so we have not narrowed that down on exactly what that will be yet. We've got a few different ideas. Maybe
email us if you have any ideas, any thoughts.
Go email
duelofthegreats@gmail.com. Yep. We have, I think we're on the Twitter, the X, whatever the hell that's called now. We have a Snapchat thingy. No, not Snapchat. What is it you have, Instagram. Nate? What are you in charge of?
Oh, TikTok.
TikTok. That's. I'm so with it. We have a TikTok. What's our TikTok handle? Is it Duel the Greats, or is it just Duel
of the Greats?
We'll put it in the show notes. This is excellent podcasting.
Well, they're
right
always
here.
in the show notes.
That's true. Yeah. One other thing I think I want to put in the show notes. If anybody else is as interested in these directors as we clearly are, after we spent many hours of our lives with them, there's a really cool interview with the two of them interviewing each other, basically, on GQ's website. It's 40 minutes of the two of them just talking about their history and their movies. We have the link in one of our various documents in our files. I'll make sure it gets in the show notes for when this goes out. It's pretty cool if anybody's interested in that. Very neat. Very neat. Neato, guys. Go get on the Snapchat.
So that wraps it up for season 2. Any other closing thoughts? Anything else we want to add before we slam the gavel on this one?
Oh, it's cliche.
Just enjoy watching movies with you guys.
Yeah, it's fun. I've had a lot of fun doing this. And Brandon, thank you for being our rock.
Yes, our producer, our
like a rock.
This
strong as it can be.
Does not go without Brandon. You can speak now, Brandon. You don't have to type in the chat.
I was just saying I love Gangs of New York. It's one of my favorite movies. It's not like
I love it too.
Oh my god, one of my favorite movies, but I
wanted to watch it.
This is also, we're talking about a Scorsese movie. So when I say I don't really like it,
in terms of Scorsese-ness.
Yeah, that still makes it better than like 90% of other movies probably, but there are 15 Scorsese movies I would watch before Gangs of New York.
Maybe Brandon and I will do our own special watch along of that, and we'll record it.
Record us watching Gangs of New York. I would like that.
I'll leave the viewers with this fun little tidbit. I was for a brief moment in a Gangs of New York Civil War reenacting group.
I'm not surprised, Steve.
Oh yeah, not at all surprising.
I'd love to see the choreography.
I didn't get that far. As shocking as you might find it,
You didn't think it through enough to get to that part. Oh,
it's hard to get to events in the Bowery when you live in Kansas City, Missouri.
All right. On that note, we will officially conclude season 2. Spike Lee, the victor. He joins Steven Spielberg up on the mantle. You know, I have a mantle right here next to me. It's all Chief stuff right now, but we should find a way to make trophies. Maybe we can get like a fan mail box for these guys and send it to them. Maybe they'll
A custom made trophy that we send to the winner, the directors.
Yes, just a tiny one. We got a trophy for our football pick'em group at work. We can find.
True. We can have this done.
I work with a trophy company every day. I can probably find out a really cheap one.
Boom. That's it right there.
Season 3, we'll start with the trophy ceremony. Maybe we'll have a
absolutely-
video on our Vine or our
Oh my
Snapchat
God! Did
or
you
our,
say
Oh,
Vine?
oh my God. Yeah, we could do like a Stanley Cup, right? Where we write the winners, each one engraved every year.
Did you see the fact that those rings come off of that?
Oh yeah. They put them up in the Hockey Hall of
Yeah,
Fame.
I thought that was cool.
All the old ones. Yeah.
That's actually pretty smart.
Yeah, because there'd be no way. That is the oldest trophy, the oldest championship trophy in American sports. For those who didn't know, there's that bit of NHL.
How old is it? When was it?
It is like 130 years old, I think.
Okay, that's pretty old.
Excuse my typing.
But anyway, so that concludes season 2, folks.
1892.
Thank you so much. 1892. Look at that. 130.
That's why you're the best in the business.
Years old. That's
Look how quick that was.
So yeah, that was, and you know what's even crazier? I didn't even know. I first learned that bit of trivia when I was in grade school, and I knew it was 106 years old. But since that much time has passed, I added up, did it in my head. Look at me, I'm an accountant.
We're so far off track now.
So far gone. This is almost 2 hours now. That's where we're at. So we're gonna wind this down, whether we want to or not. We're gonna end this show. Thank you so much for taking this journey with us, folks. It was an absolute blast. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to us talk about.
We had a lot of fun.
These movies. It was a really good season. I thought this was really fun and interesting season. And like I said, we're gonna throw some ideas together. We're gonna narrow down season.
We have some fun ideas. There's some really fun ideas.
I think season 3, we might branch out a little bit more, and do some different things. So we'll see how that goes. But we'll definitely keep you posted on social media and all that. So stay tuned. And again, thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate it. Be sure to come back next season and go ahead and listen to this season as many times as you want.
That's true. Check it out. Leave comments on our GeoCities webpage.
If you ever want
Angelfire.com.
If you ever want to fall asleep to the dulcet tones of Stephen Shepard, then this is your place. No other place is better for that. So please make that happen.
It's the only place, frankly.
Thank you all so much for listening. We will see you next season.
We love you.
yeah.